What is going on, everybody? You guys already know who it is. It's your boy, Colby, also known as Patriots Global, here with my boy, Jace, from the Patriots Drive podcast. Guys, we are bringing you the show that most of you probably never asked for, but unfortunately for you, you're getting, because this is the day I'm six-time Super Bowl champion, New England Patriots, baby. Yes, me and Jace are bringing you the Patriots Roundtable here on the AFC East Roundtable, brought to you by Roundtable Sports. This is a show that you can expect every Friday around 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Today, we're going to be kicking off our first show, and we are going to be breaking down the 2 days of Patriots Minicamp. Now, of course, most teams, they had 3. The Patriots, they decided to take off on Tuesday to do a little bit in the community, and we'll break that down a little bit. But, I mean, Jace, man, how we feeling? First episode.
Man, I'm freaking excited because, hey, I know that there's a lot of representation for the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins on the AFC East roundtable, and you've done a great job there representing the Patriots, but there's no roundtable show for the Patriots, and now there is. And I'm just saying this right now, there's those 3 teams don't have as many Super Bowls as the Patriots do combined. I know the Bills got none. I know the Dolphins got 2. Who cares about the Jets, man? They barely beat us for the first time in like 7 years last year. So I'm excited as heck to be on this podcast with you. Hopefully bring some representation to the Patriots fans and just talk about Patriots football, man. It's been a rough 3 years. Like, I'm not saying that the Patriots are the best team in the AFC East like they have been since 2000 to 2019, but there's a lot of hope in the future, and I'm just excited to be on this podcast to talk about it, talk some Patriots football with some Patriots fans and you, and yeah, let's get this thing going, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. And look, I know that a lot of maybe other creators here on Roundtable Sports and even on the AFC East Roundtable, we like to get at each other. We like to kind of throw out flying takes, bizarre takes. We like to have fun, right? We like to pick on each other. This is going to be more of a analytical show. We're going to really break down what the Patriots are doing and the news and our overall thoughts from a wide lens. And look, I know that a lot of the representation on the AFC East Roundtable is Bills, it's Dolphins, it's Jets, right? One thing I'll say, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. Trust me, you're going to want to know what's going on with the New England Patriots if you're going to rat on me every single week, but you're also going to want to know what's going on with the New England Patriots, especially now as we enter the season and we enter training camp, so that you know what to expect from this team. Because believe it or not believe it or not, but whether you want to face it or not, your team is going to be facing our team, the New England Patriots, 2 times a year. So you better know what to expect. So, I mean, Jace, without further ado, I think that we should just hop right into this. And I think what we should first start with is we should start here with day 1, and we should start with some general notes here, because there were some guys that were either absent or were not practicing here on day 1 that I think were takeaways. So, Kendrick Bourne, absent. Cole Strange, absent. Jake Andrews, absent. Josh Uche, absent. Jelani Tavai and Sione Takitaki all were absent. I'll start this off here first, Jace. Kendrick Bourne, we know that KB wasn't expected to be in spring practices. This is something that Jerod Mayo said himself. So we're kind of expecting him to be there hopefully by the start of training camp. Really no surprise that KB wasn't there. As for Cole Strange, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to even say that at this point. Cole Strange probably is on the outside looking in on this Patriots roster. Obviously, he wasn't drafted by Elliott Wolf or Jerod Mayo. And Jerod Mayo said himself a few weeks ago, he said that Cole Strange is week to week, and you could even take it month by month. Great chance that he probably doesn't even start the season on the active roster. He's probably going to be injured yet again. For me, Jake Andrews, the Patriots drafted him in the 4th round just in last year's draft, and this dude has not been able to get on the field. He hasn't been healthy, and the Patriots are having to play guards at center because other than David Andrews, they do not have a center. Any thoughts, overall on these day 1 absences?
The biggest one for me has got to be Jake Andrews, because we knew that we had heard the Cole Strange things. And the biggest concern for me as a Patriots fan going into week 1 and this whole season is the offensive line. And it got shuffled around so many times throughout this mini camp, just the 3 days that they had it. And I don't want that to be the issue last year. Now, no, Mac Jones was not the answer, but he had the short end of a stick with an offensive line that was very bad and consistently hurt. And so Jake Andrews, for me, a guy that you take with a pretty premium pick with a 4th round one there, and you think, hey, maybe this guy can replace David Andrews, or maybe he can come in and play guard. for me, it's a little concerning because, like you said, he has never once been healthy and he's never been able to stay on the field. And David Andrews, even though he's a bull and he has not been very injury prone throughout his career, the last couple of years he has, and that's going into his age and things like that. And so you need a viable center option. You need those guys to be vocal. You need them to be able to say what the protection is, be able to take command. And we have a ton of young guys on the offensive line, especially in the interior. Layden Robinson, you just drafted Caden Wallace, who projects as maybe a better interior guy. You've taken a bunch of guys in the last 3 years, Antonio Mafi, Sidney Sal. Those guys need a veteran leader or someone that's going to speak up for them. And so not having Jake Andrews out there for day one was a little bit of a concern, just because he's kind of the guy that you were hoping is going to learn behind David Andrews and then take over for him. And now you're trying to figure out, well, now who's going to be able to snap if David Andrews gets hurt?
Yeah, exactly, right? Because David Andrews, I mean, over the last few seasons, he was pretty healthy last year, but for the most part, I mean, he misses a game or two there. And James Ferentz is a guy that the Patriots, from a veteran standpoint, every single year just re-signed. Well, he's not in the NFL anymore. I think he's coaching for the Giants now. You don't have a guy who's going to be able to back him up. You have guards who don't have any real center experience that you're now trying to give them. And, Jake Andrews didn't play last year. We thought he was just sitting behind David Andrews to take over, and we were all perfectly fine with that. But he was a 4th-round pick. This is a guy that in some way, shape, or form, you have to get on the field. And we don't know if he's a center. We don't know if he's a guard in their mind at this point. And he's another guy that could be on the outside looking in because he just strictly cannot get on the field. Big shout out here to my boy, Glenn. Glenn with a $2 donation says, congrats on Patriots Roundtable. Glenn, brother, I appreciate you for the donation, and I appreciate you for being here, man. Again, I know that there might not be a whole lot of Patriots fans on the AFC East Roundtable just yet, but let me tell you guys, I said this on the beginning of the show, I'll say it again. You're going to want to know what's going on with the Patriots, whether you like the Patriots or hate the Patriots, because you're going to be facing them this upcoming season twice a year. So nonetheless, I appreciate all of you, no matter what team you're representing, for being here. But moving on here, let's talk about the players that returned, right? Day one, we had Michael Onwenu, Chuks Okorafor, Zuri Henry, Matthew Judon, Devon Godchow, Daniel Aquale, Jonathan Jones, and Marcus Jones all returned. Now, obviously, not too surprising, the majority of the veterans returned. It's mandatory minicamp, right? As Matthew Judon said, you're damn straight I'm going to show up because I don't want to lose any money. You're going to get fined if you do not show up to mandatory minicamp, as were with, obviously, OTAs. It was optional. For me, no real standouts here. Obviously, Michael Onwenu and Chuks Okorafor, your starting tackles, at least what's projected right now to be your starting tackles. They weren't there for the final couple of days of OTAs that were open to the media. I feel like my biggest takeaway here is actually Zuri Henry. And we don't know much from Zuri Henry. He's a UDFA that the Patriots picked up after the 2024 draft, but he's the only pure left tackle that the Patriots picked up this offseason, and that is a major, major need for them, right? Chuks Okorafor is right now your pinned-in starting left tackle. In the league so far with the Steelers, he's only played at right tackle. You drafting Caden Wallace to play at left tackle. He was a right tackle at Penn State. Zuri Henry is the only player on this roster on the offensive line that is a true left tackle. And we didn't see him at Patriots rookie minicamp. We didn't see him at all during OTAs, but we knew that he was still attending, like the Celtics games and whatnot. So he was still around Boston. We just didn't know what was going on. So it was good to definitely see him in the mix. He'll definitely be in the conversation to be the Patriots swing tackle or be depth there because, I mean, dude, left tackles in general, the Patriots don't just need starters, but they also need backups. It's a real thing. Did you have any, real takeaways from any players that returned here?
Well, the biggest one for me is Matt Judon, just because of how he's probably the best player on this roster. He's going to be the defensive player of the year for the Patriots, unless, Christian Gonzalez has that huge breakout year, which I think could happen. But still, Matt Judon is the veteran of the team. He goes down with the torn bicep week 4 of last season. You don't get to see him. That's a huge loss for the Patriots. As a fan and as a guy like that's saying, hey, who's going to have the most impact? It's going to be Matt Judon. Him coming back was just great to see him out there. And like you said, he could have easily have said, I'm not going to come back. I need that contract extension. No, he comes out there, he's out there, and he's having a really good time. So I like seeing him back there. But going back to kind of your offensive line thing, it was interesting because they were switching Michael Onwenu from right guard to right tackle and keeping Caden Wallace at right tackle. So originally you take a 3rd-round pick on Caden Wallace, who I think is a really good player. But the original thought from fans was, hey, this is going to be your left tackle. Well, guys, that's very optimistic to one, think he's going to switch from left tackle or from right tackle to left tackle and be a viable week 1 starter in the NFL. Or Chuks Okorafor is going to be able to make that switch where he's most likely played right tackle. So that's the big concern. And it's what I just said, talking about Jake Andrews earlier is what is the offensive line combination going to be? We saw so many different ones. And yeah, Zuri Henry is the only true left tackle. Is he going to be the starting left tackle week 1? I think there's better guys on the roster than him, but he's the only one so far that has left tackle experience in the NFL. So for me as a fan and exciting, I was so excited to see Judon out there speaking to the media saying, heck yeah, I'm going to be out there. He loves Boston. He loves the Patriots. He has spoken so highly of this organization so many times and stood up for him. So I was freaking pumped to hear and see that he was back out there just because he's going to be one of the leaders of the defense, if not the leader. So he was the big one for me, but man, the offensive line just continues to concern me with all the moving part there and everything. I love Michael Onwenu at right tackle because he's been the best offensive lineman we've had for a couple of years. So why move him? I get he projects really good as a right guard, but man, our tackle situation's a lot scarier than our guard situation, in my opinion. So the fact that you're moving, in my thoughts, the best offensive lineman on your roster between right guard and right tackle is just instantly scary for me and something I don't like to hear.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, the other takeaway that you could probably have from the players that returned and even limited, which we can get into now, the players that were limited on day one, Terrell Jennings, Javon Baker, the rookie, Devon Godchow, Marcellus Dial, and Caleb Ford Dement. Obviously Javon Baker, Marcellus Dial, I think it was like the second to last OTA practice that was open to the media. They started being limited. So clearly they're dealing with some type of injury, which isn't ideal, but they have a month off. And I think that's something you'll have to track as we enter training camp. But supposedly Devon Godchow is doing pretty much exactly what Matthew Judon was doing a year ago today, right? The optional practices, he's not going to attend those. The mandatory ones, he's going to show up so he doesn't get fined. But for the most part, he's going to stand there on the sidelines in a sweatshirt, just kind of holding his helmet. And Gerard Mayo pretty much confirmed the fact that Devon Godchow is in fact holding in. But Mayo said on Devon Godchow's absence, he said, we want him here. He's one of our best players. Look, I understand we're giving out a lot of contract extensions. I'm sorry, but Devon Godchow has a cap hit of $11.8 million in his contract year for 2024, and he was one of PFF's worst interior defensive linemen in terms of pass rush and at stopping the run. I understand he's your only pure nose tackle. Figure it out. If you need a guy who's just a big body who's gonna, kind of plug gaps, find somebody. Trade a 7th round pick for just a big body guy, because $11.8 million and he wants a new contract is absolutely absurd of him. I can't wrap my mind around that one.
Well, there's a much more players that are going to want or that are going to deserve more money than him coming next year. Matt Judon, Josh Uche is going to be on a 1-year deal. John Jones is going to be up. It's just, I mean, I could go down Jabril Peppers, right? Austin Hooper. I don't know if you want to bring him KJ Osborne. If you just scroll down here, there's a ton of guys that are going to deserve that 11 point whatever million cap hit that Devon Godchow is taking right now. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I agree. I think you can find good late round defensive tackles in the draft. There were a couple that I liked this year. I'm sure there's going to be a couple that I really like next year, 4th, 5th, 6th round guys. So I agree with you. You sign Barmore. That's the biggest one of the year. He's locked up for, a good portion. 4 years is what his deal was. He's locked up for there. He's going to be the defensive tackle of the future. So now you got to kind of find those diamond in the roughs and find kind of place who you think there that can't be taking up $11 million, because then you're going to lose an important piece in the secondary like John Jones. Or you're going to lose a good edge rusher like Josh Uche somewhere in there. So yeah, you got to find someone to replace Godchow, even though he's a good player and I like him. But you got to find someone to replace him at that cap hit in the near future, because he can't be staying on this roster taking up that when Barmore just signed the contract he did.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Richie from Jets Media, my boys in the chat. Patriots Roundtable is here. Yes, sir. A lot of good content coming up. I mean, it's only episode 1. We still got a lot to add, but I'm definitely excited for this, man. Like, the chemistry, I think, is just gonna bounce off the walls. But let's move on here. One more thing that I do want to add as a caveat before we kind of get into a couple more notes from day 2, before we break down each position, is that the Patriots had the referees present, right, for minicamp. And Gerard Mayo said that he wanted these refs to be hard on his players because apparently throughout OTAs and the other spring sessions, there was a major problem with holding. And we know that, penalties, especially once the offensive line, have been an issue for New England for several years, putting them in really big holes, especially on third down, that they just didn't have the repertoire to be able to convert with. So that is definitely something to take away. And then obviously Patriots offensive lineman Michael Jordan gets ejected late in practice for day one of minicamp for getting into it with Tristan Hill. No punches were thrown, but Gerard Mayo, he's not going to stand for that kind of stuff, right? Like literally at all. And you thought Belichick wouldn't. Gerard Mayo's not going to stand for that stuff even more. That's why joint practice with the Eagles, he said, we can have joint practice, but it's only going to be one day because I'm not dealing with all the fighting. Gerard Mayo wants players who are going to play for each other, right? Look to your player to your right and look to the player to your left. That's who you're playing for. We are a team. You do not play against your teammates. You do not play for yourself. So Michael Jordan getting kicked out. What first fight of the offseason, Jace? First fight of the offseason. You love to see it.
Who would have thought it was the greatest basketball player of all time getting kicked out of Patriots minicamp? No,
yeah, dude, right?
But no, I actually really like the officials being there. Sometimes, when I where I coach and stuff, when you're doing spring practices and spring ball, you have officials there, and you have them during drills, and you have them during team periods and stuff, because it really does give that liven up feel. It's so easy to say, oh yeah, that guy would have been sacked right there on that play, or that's a holding right there. But until you have officials out there throwing flags and stuff, it doesn't really mean anything. It's all just talk between the players and, jib jab between the coaches and stuff. So I actually really like that idea. I think that that's a great idea. It just livens it up a little bit more and gets these players. We have a young team, right? There's a lot of young players on this roster that need to get used to NFL officiating and things like that, need to get used to the speed of the game. So they need to have quicker feet, or they need to be stronger. They need to do whatever they need to do to improve, instead of just getting bailed out by not having refs out there and getting in bad habits by either holding or doing some of those things. So I really like that idea. Like, that's a big executive decision by a first-year head coach that knows the game. And it comes to, like, he was a great linebacker for us, and he knows the game. He knows what it's like. So that I love that. Actually, I think that was a huge thing. And just kind of for me as a fan, like, hey, that's like something that you love to see your head coach out there saying, hey, we need to improve on this. How can we get better at not holding? Well, let's bring officials and actually have these guys throw flags and tell our players, instead of us, defensive linemen, if they're getting told offensive linemen, if they're saying they're holding by a defensive lineman, they're not going to believe them. They're like, oh yeah, you think I hold you every play. Same with defensive coaches, right? Us Patriots fans, every time we play someone, oh, that's holding right there. Well, no, it's not. The officials didn't call it, but now you bring out actual officials and it really livens it up. So I think that's a huge step by Gerard Mayo, leadership wise, and in the right direction to improve the team.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is something we usually don't even see in minicamp. This is something that we see not even during the start of training camp. This is something that we see like when pads come on during the training camp phase. So definitely earlier on, but like you said, with so much new players and young players and chemistry building, right? You want to hold players accountable, because the Patriots need to get back to just the fundamentals, right? The key little details. And that's what made the Patriots great for so long, is they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. They just did the little things so damn well. They just played so clean. The game overall that they played every single week was just so clean that they weren't getting penalties and shooting themselves in the foot. So that's something that they definitely need to get back to if they're going to be competitive. But moving on here, though, to day two, kind of the generalized notes. Players that were absent on day two, pretty much the same thing, but a couple of takeaways. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, Tyron Wheatley, Cole Strange, Jake Andrews, Jelani Tobias, Sione Takitaki, for the most part, it is the same players. But Tyquan Thornton misses his first practice of spring. And this is a guy that I have on the outside looking in. I think the two players that are most likely to get cut in really a loaded wide receiver room. And I'm not saying loaded as in it's elite, but there are a lot of wide receivers, right now on this roster. A lot of guys are going to get cut. To me, it's between Tyquan Thornton and Juju. Those are both guys, to me, on the outside looking in. Both could be the sixth wide receiver on the roster. Both could get cut, and it wouldn't surprise me. But Tyquan Thornton sounds like he kind of nicked something maybe at the end of day one of minicamp, and that's why he missed day two. He gets injured. every single year around this time. And he said he put on, some weight, he put on some muscle. It really, for the most part, doesn't look like it. And it clearly didn't do anything for him because he's already getting injured. It's just the same thing every single year with Tyquan Thornton. I think if the Patriots can even get a 7th round pick from him at this point, they should ship him off. I'd rather see Jalen Reagor in Tyquan's role than I would rather see Tyquan. What are your thoughts on Tyquan at this point? Because, obviously he'll be fighting for a roster spot in training camp in the preseason, and football is a what have you done for me lately league, not what did you do at minicamp. So I'm not saying it's completely over for him, but it is the same thing every single year.
So the Patriots took 6 receivers on the 53-man roster last year, right? So it was Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Tyquan Thornton. Obviously, Devontae Parker's gone. So for me this year, I expect it to be no less than 6. I could even push for 7. I think it's Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, KJ Osborne, Juju Smith-Schuster, and I believe Jalen Reagor has a chance because of the kick return value he has there. I'm not saying they will take 7, but he has legitimate kick return ability. So if there's going to be a 7th receiver that is going to be taken, I believe it's Jalen Reagor. I agree with you. I think that Tyquan Thornton is on the outside looking in. I'm almost to the point where I'm sick of it because, hey, this guy has elite speed that a lot of people in the NFL don't have. It doesn't matter if you're not on the field. And it's just he one of his concerns coming in to the NFL, it's kind of the same for me with what Xavier Worthy was this year, is can he handle the NFL? Can he handle the daily practices, the hits, the contact and stuff? And we've seen he can't. And for me, we have a young receiving core. I don't think it benefits us to take another young guy like Tyquan Thornton. Juju Smith-Schuster was very disappointing last year, but you heard him say, I'm finally at 100%. I was at 60% last year. I think that has some value for him and Kendrick Bourne to be in there and kind of teach these younger guys. Do I want Juju Smith-Schuster to take reps from Jalen Polk or Javon Baker? Hell no, not a chance in the world. But do I want him in there for his experience and veteran leadership? Probably. And I don't know if Tyquan Thornton or Juju Smith-Schuster has more value at this point. It might be a bag of chips, but that's where I stand on those guys. I would prefer taking Juju over Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah, dude. And honestly, a lot of times we saw the Patriots keep 6 wide receivers, and even then, a lot of times the 6th wide receiver was like Matthew Slater, who we knew never even played wide receiver. I think that it could be different this year because there is a lot of young developing players. I mean, Kayshon Boutte so far has looked really, really good throughout spring practices. So that's another young guy that you're like, he might not have a necessary role right now, but we want to develop him. We want to see what happens to her. Maybe they do keep 7 wide receivers. I think Juju and Tyquan are both definitely on the outside looking in. If you get the opportunity to trade any of those players, I think the Patriots will 100% take that. I think that Jalen Reagor should actually be on the roster more than not just Tyquan, but should actually be on the roster more than Juju should also. I think throughout the stretch of last season, we saw him getting a lot more involved in the passing game. He obviously had that kick return for a touchdown against the Bills, I think the second to last week of the season, if I remember correctly. So we saw that. Obviously brings special teams abilities, which the Patriots don't have a kick returner. They have a punt returner in Marcus Jones. They don't have a real kick returner, so he can obviously serve that role. But despite his size, Jalen Reagor is one hell of a damn run blocker, and the Patriots are going to be such a run-based team in Alex Van Pelt's system. They already said that, don't necessarily expect too much from the quarterbacks because they're going to try to take a lot of that weight off and put it all on the running backs. This is going to be an offense that is centered around the running game. Having wide receivers that are going to be able to block for you go a long, long way. So I really think that Jalen Reagor is a lot more likely to make the Patriots roster than I think a lot of people are giving him credit for. But shout out to TD. We got TD in the chat, says 2 wins. Back to when TD air quote trolled me just because he wouldn't let me get a word out when he tried to say the Patriots were going to win 3 games. TD, buddy, much love to you, but please listen into the entire episode because we're going to break down everything about the Patriots that you clearly don't know if you think that they're only going to win 3 games, my boy. So just sit down and listen up. Also, big shout out to Joe who says, sleep on the Pats. Remember what happened last time the AFC East slept on New England. It's also crazy to me because I mean, you have Dolphins fans and Jets fans chirping the most, but it's like, When's the last time y'all won a playoff game? When's the last time you went to a Super Bowl? When's the last time you won a Super Bowl? But yet the Patriots are irrelevant because they've had a down year the last 5 years, right? The Patriots are still the most successful team in the AFC East over the last 10 years. They're still the most successful team in the NFL over the last 10 years. So this whole talk about they're irrelevant is wild when your team can't win anything once the postseason starts.
It
Joe,
honestly
shout out
just
to you.
gives me joy that all these fans in here, Bills, Jets, Dolphins, are just still salty because for the last 22 years, we have just had the greatest run in sports history. And so whatever you say, we could win 2 games, that's okay, man, because the last 22 years were freaking fantastic. And TD, you probably will never have a lick of what that tastes like as a Dolphins fan. So I just take joy in that.
Yeah, and it's like, look, if the Patriots never even go to a playoff game, never win a playoff game for the rest of my life, you know what? I still have 20 years of dominance that I can go back and watch and look at and gaze on and watch the Super Bowls and relive. Most of you will never even live through a Super Bowl win for your franchise. I got to live through 6 of them as I grew up throughout my entire life, right? Because that dominance that the Patriots had, that started when I was born. I was born in 2001, so I just grew up with straight dominance, and I'm so beyond forever grateful for it. So a big shout out though to Glenn, who comes back in with another donation, a $20 donation. My boy Glenn is showing out today. We appreciate you, buddy. It goes so far in supporting not just me, not just Jace, but it goes also in helping to support Roundtable Sports in general. So big shout out to you, buddy. You said what's scary about the Pats is their defense. If they could get the running game going and have the quarterback manage the game, they could be a little bit scary. In the future, we'll talk about Drake May's growth. Glenn, this is why I love you. You are real. You talk about the truth no matter who the team is. I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly. The thing about the Patriots is that we're not expecting them to be a playoff team next year. We're not expecting them to win a Super Bowl. We're not expecting them to be competitive. If they are, great. What we as Patriots fans are expecting to see next season is just growth. We want to see from week 1 to week 18 growth of this team and just a better overall team than we saw last year. That's what we are expecting to see. But even early on in the Tom Brady era, the 20 years of dominance, 2001 to 2010, what the New England Patriots were based on was not Tom Brady. Tom Brady was not Tom Brady to start. It was not based off of elite quarterback play. It was based off of an elite defense that carried the offense as it developed, as it progressed, and also relied on its run game offensively. The philosophy that the New England Patriots started with, that started this entire dynasty back in the early 2000s, is the exact same philosophy that they're going to use here. And by the way, I'm not saying that, Drake May's Tom Brady and we're going back on the same exact 20-year tangent that we just had. I'm not saying that. But the same philosophy that they ran in the early 2000s with Tom Brady that won them games still, that still kept them competitive, is the exact same thing that the Patriots are going to do now.
You have to establish the run game in the NFL, right? It's so easy. If you can't run the ball, teams are just going to sit in too high shells. Like that's why the Chiefs struggled so much against the Bucks when they played in the Super Bowl. The Bucks sat in cover 2, and they just were able. They didn't have to put a 8th defender in the box. They were able to just say, "Hey, you guys aren't going to beat us deep, and you can't get first downs on our front 7." So the Patriots are going to have to establish the run game. I hope Ramondre is up for that because he hasn't stayed healthy the last couple of years. He's going to take a big role, especially with not adding another back. Antonio Gibson's going to be probably more of a 3rd down back. Maybe Kevin Harris has a bigger role, but the offensive line, it's the same exact thing I talked about. As much of a concern as I have as like no left tackle and the Patriots having a struggling offensive line, it's how the heck does this offensive line get the run game going in Alex Van Pelt's system? They have some big dudes in the interior. I think that it's going to be great to have City Sal and Tony Maffey and Layden Robinson, 2 of those 3 guys in the interior to move some defensive tackles and get to the second level, or even Michael Winu. But how do they mesh? How do they gel? Can we get this run game going is going to be the most important thing, because we're going to have to take some stress off Drake May once he starts, whether that's week 8, week 10, whenever that is. And then Jacoby Brissett, we all know he's great, but he's good when he doesn't have to put the team on his shoulders and win you the game on his own. So there's going to have to be a huge up step from this run game, and I'm excited to see it because I think Ramondre has it in him if he can stay healthy. He was a 1,000-yard rusher a couple years ago, but we'll see, once we get there. But this is spot on, Glenn. I think that the run game is going to be a huge key for the Patriots this year.
Yeah, Glenn, really good comment, dude. I think you, again, hit the nail on the head there. Final couple of just general notes from day 2 before we break down each position. The Patriots had guests yet again: Devin McCourty, Deion Branch, Jason McCourty. This was the day of the Tom Brady induction ceremony, so it made sense that a lot of older veterans were there. And I'm a big fan. Like, I don't know about you, Jace, but I'm a big fan of having these old key veteran players from this franchise actually come in and help these players, especially from a defensive standpoint, because like we said, the Patriots are going to very much rely and need to utilize this defense if they're going to be competitive, if they're going to win games, right? And having Devin McCourty, having Deion Branch, having Jason McCourty there on top of, the offensive players that we had from day one, like Julian Edelman and whatnot, I actually put stock into that.
No, I love it. You lose huge leaders. Tom Brady, when he left, that's a massive leadership role. Obviously, you're never going to fill that again. Matthew Slater, and he leaves too. Same thing with Devin McCourty. So the fact that those guys are coming back, especially Slater and McCourty, Brady obviously had his Hall of Fame thing. He sounds like he's been hanging around Drake May a little bit, but bringing in success from other Patriots players that were there for the dynasty is only going to benefit the young guys. It's experience, it's, advice, it's all those things. I love it. I think it's great. And we want those guys around. What Patriots fan doesn't want Devin McCourty, Matthew Slater, and Julian Edelman and Tom Brady, those guys around? That's our childhood. That's what me and you talk about when we saw 6 Super Bowls. It's those guys. So that's exactly who we want around. That's exactly who these young guys want around. Like Drake May, you think he doesn't want to learn from Tom Brady or sit down a couple times a year and have conversations with him? Same thing with Brendan Schooler, who's still a young guy, learn from Matthew Slater or, Devin McCourty, who can teach Christian Gonzalez or whoever else it is at the safety room. Kyle Duggar, who's still considered young, right? But give these guys a chance to learn from the greats that were in this program or in this dynasty for the last 20 years. So I love that they're bringing these guys back. Like it's excites me because all you ever hear about is like, oh, the Patriots were boring. The only reason people went there is because they won games. Well, no, Tom Brady's coming back. Bill Belichick's coming back. Devin McCourty's coming back. Edelman said he would have never have left the Patriots. He's a one-man team. So I love seeing these guys come back. That's who the Patriots are.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like I said, I was there for the Tom Brady induction ceremony. It's just so emotional, bro. So emotional, so much closure. One thing I'll say before we continue on is just like this offseason in general, I would say, mixed with week 1 of this past season, was the story ending to the last 20 or so years that I think every Patriots fan needed. We had laughs, we had fun with the roast. Then we brought everybody back to Gillette Stadium, this past Wednesday to just kind of reminisce and say our final goodbyes. It was one hell of a time. If you guys do want to see some exclusive footage from Tom Brady's induction ceremony, go ahead and check out my Twitter and my Instagram. I got videos from when I was there. But anyway, back to these quarterbacks. I think that's what we should probably hit on here first. I think that's what every single Patriots fan wants to hear a little bit more of, is how are these quarterbacks performing? So let's talk here about how these quarterbacks are performing. So like specifically on day 1, in terms of 11 on 11s, I got some numbers here for you, Jace. Jacoby Brissett was 9 for 16. Drake May was 12 for 16. Bailey Zappi was 1 for 4 with an interception, while Joe Milton was 3 for 5. In terms of 7 on 7s for day 1, Jacoby Brissett was 6 for 10. Drake May was 6 for 7, and Bailey Zappi was 5 for 7. The quarterback order that we saw on day 1 was Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, Bailey Zappi, Joe Milton. And the reason that we're putting stock into the quarterback order is, Jace, as I'm sure you know, early on into OTAs, we had Bailey Zappi taking the quarterback 2 reps with Drake May at number 3. And everybody started freaking out, even me, because this is something that wasn't even for a day. Like, this is something that we were consistently seeing in practice. And me personally, I'm saying you just used the 3rd overall pick on your franchise quarterback, whether he's ready to play this upcoming season or not, whether you plan to play him this upcoming season or not, that he needs to develop and he needs to be getting as many snaps as humanly possible. But I think the way Gerard Mayo saw it was, yeah, we used a 3rd overall pick on you, but nothing is guaranteed in life and nothing is going to be guaranteed while you are on this team. You're going to need to fight for it, even the quarterback order. And that's exactly what he had to do. And Drake May has officially surpassed Bailey Zappi at this point consistently for those quarterback 2 reps. Moving on, though, to the numbers just from day 2 for reference, because Drake May had a really, really good day 1 of minicamp. It was said that that was arguably the best practice that we saw from Drake May so far as a New England Patriot. Then, of course, they're off on Tuesday. They go out into the community in like 6 different groups, and they do a bunch of different things for team bonding. They come back Wednesday, and it's a lot more shaky, right? The offense in general looked a lot more shaky for the Patriots, but more specifically, the quarterbacks on day 2 looked a lot more shaky for the Pats. And Drake May was unfortunately one of those. In terms of 11 on 11s for day 2, Jacoby Brissett, still your quarterback 1. He was 9 for 15. Drake May was 7 for 12 with an interception. 7 on 7s, Jacoby Brissett went 1 for 4. Drake May went 2 for 4. And Bailey Zappi also went 2 for 4. One thing I will say, too, is that Drake May has looked significantly better in 7 on 7s compared to 11 on 11s. It seems like when he has pressure in his face, when he's having to deal with this rough offensive line, which we'll talk about, and the multiple different combinations of offensive linemen that we're seeing, that's when he's starting to get a little bit flustered, and that's when his mistakes are being shown. But, any of your key thoughts from these quarterbacks here from 2 days?
The biggest thing is that Drake May improved and he battled adversity, but we'll talk about day 3, battled adversity and came back and was freaking stellar. But it is the hardest thing in the NFL to come in as a 22-year-old quarterback like Drake May is to a shitty offensive line, and 3 of your best receivers are either rookies or second-year guys. So for me, I think that it shows, hey, we understand that Drake May has his flaws. He needs to improve on some things. But we've seen really good things out of Drake May, and then we've seen really bad things out of Drake May that aren't much of a concern for me, but it's more of, it shows the Patriots they can't do the same thing they did for Mac Jones. If you give Drake May someone like Stephon Diggs when the Bills traded for him when Josh Allen wasn't going into his 3rd year, or Tyreek Hill like Tua did, there is a chance that Drake May can be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He has the intangibles. He was my favorite quarterback in this draft for a reason. 6'4", 230 pounds, is super underrated athletically, throws the ball over the middle of the field. If you guys aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's the Patriots Drive. I just did a film review of Drake May. He throws the ball over the middle of the field in between the hashes and the numbers better than anyone in this class. He can step up in the pocket. He can throw it with velocity. He can fit it in tight windows accurately. Does he have footwork issues? For sure. Definitely. He can fix those, and Alex Van Pelt and those guys will get that worth. So I was actually thrilled to see that Drake May had to battle with a little bit of adversity. Like, we don't want this guy to just have this clean road go into game 1, and now he's just getting clobbered because we have a horrible offensive line. So I actually liked the way he responded to adversity. Thought he bounced back there. Expect Jacoby Brissett to be the week 1 starter, but Drake May is continuously getting better, and he is consistently getting praise from his teammates, from the media, from the coaches about his work ethic, how he's doing on and off the field. And I just think that it's going to be a matter of time, probably week 7 or 8 before he's starting. And I think he's going to be ready by then, and he's going to be off and running, and it's going to be fun to watch him.
Yeah, 100%. Something that I've heard a lot from the media throughout these practices so far is that, Drake May, he goes out there, he makes a bad throw, right? Because something we know about Drake May is he starts off slow. He needs time to get acclimated. And once he gets acclimated, once he's locked in, there's absolutely no stopping him. But after he throws an interception, it's not like Mac Jones, right? Mac Jones throws an interception and his entire body, you can just see it. It's the body language. It's sluggish. It's down. It's depressed. He goes off to the sidelines with his head down. Drake May throws an interception. He's bouncing back from the next play. He doesn't let it affect him. And that's one of the most important aspects. One of the most underrated aspects of playing the quarterback position is you're going to make a bad throw. You're going to have a bad moment. It's fine. That's understandable. But how do you bounce back from it? How do you bounce back from having a bad day? And Drake May has really been a day and night difference compared to what Mac Jones was able to do in that sense. One of my favorite things that the quarterbacks did from day 1 of practice is that every single quarterback got the chance for gotta have it end of the game situation. Like, you're down by, let's say, 4, you're down by 5. You got to drive down the field for a game-winning touchdown. 1 and 30 left on the clock. Unfortunately, none of them were able to drive down the field and actually convert. Jacoby Brissett, Drake May, and Joe Milton, they all had turnover on downs while Bailey Zappi had an interception. But those are the types of like situational football moments that you'll love to see, and something that has kind of been prided here in New England for so long is just that situational football. Like you said, though, and like I was even saying, Drake May is developing each and every single practice. And day one, like I said before, was the best that we saw him. He was in command. He was accurate. He made really every single different throw that you want to see from an NFL quarterback. And that's another thing that I'm loving from Drake May is that there was, I think it was the first or second OTA practice that was open to the media. He was mic'd up, and we were able to hear a little bit about, how he's interacting with Jacoby Brissett and how he's interacting with the players. He's taking charge. He's going up to players. He's telling them how he wants them to run routes, how he wants them to do things. He's just doing things that we never saw Mac Jones do that are very, very important to have at the quarterback position. So it's really refreshing to see these things. Overall, though, wasn't too much happening for the Patriots on day one of practice in terms of passes down the field. It sounds like right now the Pats are still operating very much in the short to intermediate routes. They're not getting a lot deep. That's something that it's going to come with time. That's obviously hard to get. Everybody wants big splash plays in the NFL. They're not easy to get, but New England is going to have to find ways to get these bigger plays, to get these splash plays, and not just operate in the short to intermediate area, because that's what has made this offense so stale. That's what's made this offense kind of lag out over the last several years and really made them one of the worst offenses in the NFL, one of the worst red zone offenses in the NFL. Once you have splash plays, you're able to build momentum and actually turn drives into touchdowns. So that's something you want to see, but I'm not hitting the panic button just yet. In terms of day two, that interception that Drake May threw was said to be a really bad interception where he threw a late pass over the middle of the field to Juju Smith-Schuster. But again, I'm not putting too much on that because it was just a sloppy day, like I said, for the quarterbacks in general on day two. And I wonder how much of that came from the fact that Gillette Stadium was locked down like Fort frickin' Knox because of Tom Brady and everybody coming in. You have like 5 different helicopters circling around Gillette Stadium. You have all of this happening, getting ready for the Tom Brady ceremony. And I wonder how much of that was kind of getting in these players' heads, especially these young players. And then one more play that I want to kind of mention from Drake May on day one is that he hit Jaheim Bell down the seam for a touchdown. Let me tell you, man, I think that there is a true role for Jaheim Bell. You Jets fans, you want to talk about Malachi Corley, who I was a big fan of being the Yak King. Well, this is the Yak King in terms of tight ends. Nobody was better in the damn nation than Jaheim Bell in terms of yards after the catch and missed forced tackles. I think that there's a role for him, and it's not going to be as a classic standing inline tight end. You're going to have to kind of really put him all over the offense. But I think that Jaheim Bell is an offensive weapon. And I think what we've seen from Drake May so far in practice is the fact that he's going to utilize these tight ends. Everything we've heard about Drake May coming out of the draft or heading into the draft so far has all been true. And from what's been said, he loves to operate in the middle of the field. He said himself, that's his favorite area to target is the middle of the field, down the field. And who's he going to target in those situations? It's going to be guys like Pop Douglas. It's going to be guys like Hunter Henry and Jaheim Bell. I think that those guys' stocks are going to significantly rise. So any, kind of last final thoughts here on the quarterbacks?
It's not on the quarterbacks. I actually want to transition into the receivers, but it ties into the quarterbacks because I think that Drake May did so good because of how the receivers played. Jalen Polk, huge surprise. A lot of people said, oh, the Patriots reached for this guy. Hell no. If this guy was a 1,000-yard receiver and probably one of the best receivers in the country, he was just overshadowed by Rome Odunze. He was a huge part of that Washington offense that went to the national championship, and he was a big-time threat every game for Michael Penix Jr. I also have a film review out on him, and then I'm going to have one out on Javon Baker. But the other one, Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon Boutte was dominating. He had 4 touchdowns in one day. So for me, I think that the progression that we've seen and heard of the receivers is a huge plus because we already have a shaky O-line and we're a little concerned about the receivers. At least we got 2 in the draft. But you're hearing of these young guys that can freaking play, and they've shown up in minicamp. Kayshon Boutte, his freshman year at LSU, was outstanding. He was projected to be a first-round pick. The coaching change to Brian Kelly at LSU caused a little bit of ruffled feathers. He had some off-the-field issues. A lot of people said that this was a perfect spot for him because of how the Patriots handle guys like this. Think of Aaron Hernandez and things like that when he had those issues at Florida. Rob Gronkowski was a little bit of a loose end when he got here. They can make it work. If Kayshon Boutte can figure it out, he has all the talent in the world to be a top 3 receiver for an NFL team. And it excites me to think of Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker in a year or two if they all continue to progress. Because obviously Kendrick Bourne's going to get up there in age. Juju Smith-Schuster's going to get up there in age. You might not need to look for a number 1 wide receiver because one of these guys might develop into it. You still have heard things that Jalen Polk said to his elementary school or high school, I forget what it was, after he got drafted. I'm going to be first team All-Pro. I'm going to win a Super Bowl. That's what he said to those guys. He's got all the confidence in the world. Javon Baker's been busting his ass. Everyone's been loving him. You've only heard good things from his trainer and everyone about his work ethic. The trainer actually said, like, he doesn't talk. So the fact that he's talking about this stuff and saying the things that he said when he got drafted in the 4th round is just a point to that he's going to work hard and he's going to make people pay for the mistake. So I've actually been really freaking impressed with how the receivers have been progressing. It's totally different when you get on an NFL field. I totally get that. But what we've heard and seen from them is more hope than I've had in the receiving room for probably the last 3 years, coming off of, some really bad years with not a lot of good receivers on roster.
Yeah, and this Patriots team overall is just they're very young. We don't know what they're going to be, but this is just something that we've been asking the Patriots to do for so many years. It's draft young and develop your own players. And that's something, philosophy that Elliott Wolf and Gerard Mayo have really taken on in this offseason. So, honestly, I would take the Patriots roster right now of wide receivers and the potential of the wide receivers that they currently have over the wide receiver core that we had in 2021, 2022, 2023, even 2020. Like, this is believe it or not, and that's just a caveat on how bad it's been over the last several years, but this is the best Patriots wide receiver group in terms of potential that we've seen since 2019. And I really don't think it's respectively close.
It's really not. Like, if you're just looking at, like, do we have a number 1 wide receiver on the roster? No, I'm not arguing that. But I feel like we have a lot of very good receivers. Kendrick Bourne, when he's healthy, he's good. I have such high hopes for Javon Baker, Jalen Polk. Demario Douglas is going to continue to develop. He's going to be that middle of the field threat that I would think, like you said, Drake May is going to love to throw to him in, most sets of downs, but especially on 3rd down, he might fit that Edelman role where, hey, we need 5 yards. You're just going to have an option route because it's man coverage. You just get open. Just get open and we will throw the ball to you. That's what Julian Edelman was so good at with Tom Brady, having that chemistry. So I have a lot of hope for what the Patriots receiving core has shown so far in OTAs and minicamp. We'll see how they continue to progress, but I've been very impressed with Jalen Polk. He might be the biggest story throughout minicamp, in my opinion, just off of how I've seen him play some of the routes and stuff. He might be the biggest story in the one. I mean, obviously I'm looking forward to Drake May, but I'm excited to see what Jalen Polk can do this year because I just think that his stock has rose even since he got drafted by the Patriots.
Yeah, and honestly, too, I think we've seen more production from Patriots wide receivers throughout practice so far than we've seen in years, right? I mean, like we said, Jalen Polk, throughout the 2 days of camp, he put up 4 total touchdowns. Then you have Kayshon Boutte, who in 1 day put up 4 touchdowns, right? These guys are getting in the end zone. These quarterbacks are actually finding their wide receivers in the end zone. They're capitalizing. They're actually putting points up on the board. It's not turnover on down. It's not interception. It's not punt. It's not field goal. It's get into the end zone and put in 7 points. And these wide receivers are actually showing out. Jalen Polk, he had a pair of touchdowns day 1 on 7-on-7s. He had 1 from Drake May, 1 from Bailey Zappi. He was involved and is involved a whole lot. And early on, Jalen Polk was very quiet, and I think a lot of people started panicking. I personally didn't, just because these types of practices, they're not meant for somebody like Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk isn't fast. He's not a speedster. These type of practices, these are the type of practices that like Jalen Reagor and like Tyquan Thornton should be showing out on. Somebody who's more physical and works through contact, works through those, contested 50-50 catches. they're usually the guys that show out when the pads go on, when the contact comes in. So the fact that Jalen Polk is showing out, despite there not being contact, despite there not being pads, I think says a lot. And I'm really, really excited to see how he elevates his game in training camp when there is contact allowed, when the pads do end up going on. But he's definitely progressed really, really well, from the transition from OTAs to minicamp. The guy that I think has also stood out a lot was Demario Douglas. I mean, throughout OTAs, he got into the end zone significantly. I think he was the most targeted wide receiver too. He was, and I quote, unguardable from several different media sources. On day one, he had a slick diving touchdown catch from Jacoby Brissett, got up afterwards, was super hype, was yelling, was screaming. And he adds that quickness, that speed in the slot that I think Drake May is really going to like. I think Drake May, too, we compared him to his former teammate from 2022. What was it, Josh Downs? I want to
Josh
say
Downs, yep.
was
Who's on the
Josh
Colts.
Downs. Yeah,
Yep.
he said that Demario Douglas reminds him a lot of Josh Downs, which I mean Drake May had a pretty good report with Josh Downs, so I think that
Yes, he
definitely
did.
says a lot. And then, also day one, Kayshon Boutte holding a touchdown pass from Bailey Zappi in 7-on-7s. Later on, has another one from Drake May. Moving on then to day two, Jalen Polk, fully extended touchdown catch over Mikey Victor. A great throw from yet again, Drake May, right? We are seeing Jalen Polk produce with Drake May specifically. And he's producing with other quarterbacks too, don't get me wrong, but it is specifically Drake May that he is standing out with, which is the most important, right? Your first round pick and your
Yes.
second round pick, building that chemistry. And that is something that we have seen all offseason, right? Whether it was, rookie minicamp where Drake May is screaming, he's the guy, and Jalen Polk's like, nah, he's the guy, or them going to the Bruins game together. There is clearly a chemistry developing between those two, and you love to see it. He also had a touchdown reception from Jacoby Brissett over Kyle Duggar on a stick route. And then obviously Kayshon Boutte, back-to-back touchdowns, even against, players like Alex Austin, who Alex Austin has probably been the Patriots' second best cornerback outside of Christian Gonzalez. So that definitely says a lot. Overall, day two was definitely the best practice that we saw from Kayshon Boutte, not just in minicamp, not just this offseason, but was the best practice that we have seen from Kayshon Boutte ever in a New England Patriots uniform. And while I think these receivers definitely need to continue to develop, we are definitely seeing the potential with this core that we haven't seen in a really long time. One more thing I'll add for you, Jace, is I wrote this down. Patriots minicamp day one targets. JaMycal Hasty leads the Patriots in targets from day one. He was targeted 7 times with 5 receptions. You then had Jalen Reagor, who was second in targets. He was targeted 6 times, 5 receptions. Hunter Henry in third, 6 targets, 4 receptions. Then Juju, 5 targets, 4 receptions. Jaheim Bell, 5 targets, 4 receptions. And then KJ Osborne, 5 targets, 2 receptions. Did you believe JaMycal Hasty led in targets?
No,
and with 5 receptions?
I mean, we've been missing a scat back for a couple years, right? Ever since James White left, we've been missing a true scat back. So whether it's JaMycal Hasty or whether it's Antonio Gibson, who I think is probably more likely to do it, I'm just glad they're at least incorporating the running backs into the passing game, because that was another reason the Patriots used to be so good in their offensive scheme is, hey, and it does come down to the quarterback, right? The quarterback needs to know, oh my gosh, I'm getting 0 pressure right here. I need to just dump it off to the running back out in the flat, because then he's one-on-one with a linebacker or safety, right? The quarterback is a huge part of this, which is why Tom Brady was able to take advantage of it. But still, the fact that they're at least using a scat back running back, in my opinion, is really freaking positive for me, because that could be a quarterback's best friend too. I believe, other than an offensive line, a quarterback's best friend is a really good tight end or a really good pass catching running back, because those are the 2 easiest guys to find. If you're in trouble, check it down to the running back. If you can make the right read, or you can find a big tight end over the middle of the field. Now, obviously, a true number 1 receiver helps anyone. Like, it's going to be freaking awesome to have like DJ Moore and Rome Odunze for Caleb Williams, but when you're a young rookie quarterback, if you have a trustable tight end that can continuously find and create in the middle of the field, or you have a running back that can just make guys miss on short little 1-yard dump off passes, you're going to get a lot more comfortable in the pocket. So I'm just happy they're using a running back in the passing game.
Yeah, and it's kind of bizarre that it's taken them this long to really get that third down running back. that they really, if you think about it, they have not had since James White. And that's something that the Patriots prided themselves on for so long during that Tom Brady era, like, Shane Vereen, and then it was like James White, right? You had a couple of other guys in there too. And then after James White retired, they just they didn't really look for that guy. They didn't give anybody true opportunities. And we never really understood why, because, James White and Shane Vereen, those were pivotal guys for one, the developmental of Tom Brady, or the developmental side rather of Tom Brady, but also being able to turn plays that should result in sacks or plays that are going to result in throwaways, being able to create something out of nothing with those guys, because you can just get the quick check down and they're going to be able to get yards after the catch. And the Patriots just have not had that. Ramondre Stevenson is a great running back. He's a great 3-down running back at that, but like, he's not an elite 3rd-down receiver. He's not, he's not James White. He's not Shane Vereen. He's a very different style of running back. And they add Antonio Gibson, who's a good change of pace running back who used to play wide receiver. So I think like he'll also be a very good 3rd-down back if they need, but keep things fresh, especially at the running back position. We have seen over the course of several years where it might look stacked at one point, but you enter training camp, you enter the preseason, and those guys start flying off the board with injuries. I mean, the Patriots at one point had like Sony Michel, Rex Burkhead, James White. Like, they had like 5 different running backs on the roster, and it came down to like 3 different guys because everybody's dealing with injuries. So I think that there is a true role for that 3rd running back on the Patriots open roster. We were even talking about them maybe adding, a free agent running back, a veteran running back to help this group a little bit more, because not just that, the Patriots also are going to need reps from those guys as they enter training camp. And you don't want to run Ramondre through the ground. You don't want to run Antonio Gibson through the ground in camp, in practice, before you even start the season. Not to mention the fact that they're going to need bodies just to play the preseason alone, right? So I would definitely expect them to add more running backs as time goes on, but definitely maybe utilizing JaMychal Hasty to give him, a look to see if this really can be your 3rd-down back and kind of make him your premier back in the preseason and in training camp and in these different practices. So definitely, not a lot was said about the running backs. This isn't really running back practices, but I think JaMychal Hasty was probably, my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Antonio Gibson. I thought that was a big signing. His rookie year in Washington, he was really freaking good. Like you said, a converted receiver, knows how to run routes, adds a ton of value. And just the last couple of years, I think that it would be great if the Patriots could work out an extension for Ramondre Stevenson at the right price. They've said that they've been talking about it, but he has had injury concerns. And that's the kind of question in the whole NFL is like, hey, can running backs stay healthy enough? Are they worth the contract? So if Ramondre can get back to how Ramondre was his first 2 years, I have a lot of faith in him, but they've got to find someone, maybe possibly, like you mentioned, 2 guys. I think Antonio Gibson can take some works off of it or some carries off of him. And then Kevin Harris has to have some sort of short yardage role because he's a big back that runs physically and hard. He can get, a yard or 2 if you need it on 3rd down. He can get into the end zone from the 1-yard line. So they've got to find a way to spell Ramondre Stevenson so he stays healthy, because he's the key to the run game. Like, I know when he went down, you still had Ezekiel Elliott last year, but Zeke was not the caliber of running back as Ramondre Stevenson was. So you got to get him healthy. You got to get him involved, and he's going to be a major part of this offense.
Agreed. Moving on. I mean, I don't really have much. Maybe you do, if you have anything about the tight ends that you kind of wanted to add.
No, I mean, other than the seam route that you mentioned from Jaheim Bell, that's where I see Jaheim Bell fitting, right? He's not 6'6", he's not Rob Gronkowski, but I see him, he can freaking fly for a tight end. He's going to be an H-back that can move, and I think he fits so well with Hunter Henry. I'm actually excited that we only signed Austin Hooper for a year, because after a year, I think that in 12 personnel, you can have Hunter Henry as your true inline tight end, more of a blocking guy and hand in the dirt, and you can put Jaheim Bell out wide. You could run him down the seam and make mismatches. You can do him on slide routes, deep over routes. He's going to be an exciting player to watch. I thought that it was awesome that they were able to get him in the 7th round. I probably would have, I didn't think he'd fall that far. I maybe would have taken him in the 5th or 6th round just to make sure he wasn't there, but they obviously knew he was a little bit smaller. That's why I don't think that he's going to be, very prominent over the middle of the field consistently, jump balls, like we saw Rob Gronkowski running the digs and ends, but he's going to have a role. Like you mentioned, there's going to be something that Alex Van Pelt can do with him, and it's going to be very unique, but it's going to be very freaking fun to watch him. So I'm excited for Jaheim Bell. It's good that he's building the rapport, like you mentioned too, with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, slow if he would convert from tight end to wide receiver. But in
Yes.
terms of tight ends, I think he was like, the third fastest tight end or something like that in this past year's draft class. So for a tight end, he's going to bring speed. If he converts to wide receiver, you're talking about him definitely being slower. I think he ran, a 4.6?
I'm pulling it
Four
up
six, four
right now
seven,
just so I don't
something
butcher
along
it.
those lines.
So he ran a 4.61. Yep, the fastest was Devin Culp out of Washington, ran a 4.47. Then Penn State's Theo Johnson ran a 4.51. But yeah, 4.61. It's slower than what Jalen Polk ran. And so, the people that are complaining about that, yeah, you can't move him to receiver, but he's going to be a really fast and really unique tight end.
Do you want to kick us off here with the offensive line and what we're seeing? Because honestly, this might be the biggest discussion and the biggest takeaway so far.
This is the biggest discussion in my opinion. And if you guys were here earlier, sorry, we're probably going to repeat a bunch of this stuff, but
Yeah,
it's the fact that they're moving so many pieces around, and I don't blame them. They have to move pieces around. They don't have a solid offensive line, in my opinion, right now. If Caden Wallace could switch to left tackle, then they could. If you find a guy like Layden Robinson that can replace Cole Strange, even though he's been bad and he's hurt, then the interior offensive line is there. If City Sal and Antonio Maffi continue to get better, they can be a right guard or a left guard. If David Andrews can stay healthy, we all know what David Andrews is, but there are so many ifs around the offensive line. It scares the ever-living crap out of me, and it's both in the run game and in the pass game. Do we have a lot of really good offensive linemen on this roster? I think we do. I think we have an offensive line that can be competent and better than they were last year, but we still didn't find a solution at left tackle. So they're moving guys there that probably should be at the right tackle position. Our most consistent and best offensive lineman from the last 2 years, and Michael Owenu, who's been at right tackle, is moving into right guard and switching off there so Caden Wallace can play right tackle too, which is no problem because he probably is an all-pro guard. But why would you we knew our biggest concern going in here was left tackle. Why would you not address that? So for me, the offensive line is just we got to find more information because I don't think we heard. Did you remember hearing like, hey, this is the number one offensive line. This is what they rolled with most of the time. Because everything I remember hearing was like, oh, well, Owenu was at right tackle now he's at right guard. And, now that he's over here, Chuck Chooks is at left tackle, blah, blah, blah. So I just heard so many different combinations, which is fine because it's minicamp OTAs. They're experimenting, but they got to nail down who's going to play where fast because for me, there's too many ifs along the offensive line at every position.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of a true plan they had heading into the offseason because I feel like they didn't say, this is our plan for the offensive line, despite being last in every single pass blocking metric this past year, being one of the major reasons that the offense for the Patriots in 2023 totally crumbled. Quick kind of caveat here. The way that I see the offensive line, I say this all the time, the offensive line to me is like the engine to a car. If the engine to your car is messed up, your entire car, or if the engine to your car is messed up, your entire car is going to be messed up, right? Like your car is not going to be able to operate because that is where everything functions. Whether it's the passing game or the running game, everything starts in the trenches. It starts with the offensive line. And they went into the offseason. They re-signed Michael Onwenu. They said that their plan was to play him at tackle to try to develop him as a tackle. And then you get Chuks Okorafor, who you signed from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was a right tackle, who was a left tackle in college, but throughout his 6-7 years in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers has played strictly right tackle. Now you're trying to place him back over on the left side. You go into the draft, you wait till the third round, and you reach on Caden Wallace. At least in my opinion, I think they reached on Caden Wallace. He plays right tackle at Penn State throughout his entire collegiate career, and your plan is to try to make him your left tackle. Early on, from what we saw in Patriots rookie minicamp and then early on in OTAs, from left to right, it was Chuks Okorafor with Caden Wallace kind of being like that second team, left tackle. At left guard, it was City So. At center, it was David Andrews. At right guard, it was like Nick Leverett or Layden Robinson. And then at right tackle, it was Michael Onwenu, right? That was the offensive line that we were consistently seeing early on. Then the final day or two of OTAs, we started to see things a little bit switched up. And then that translated into minicamp. What we are seeing as of late over the last 3 or 4 practices has been Michael Onwenu going from right tackle back into right guard. Layden Robinson not Layden Robinson, but Caden Wallace being developed now not as a left tackle, but is now going back to where he played in college as a right tackle. Chuks Okorafor still at left tackle, Sidy Sow at left guard, and David Andrews at center. So are we throwing away what the original plan was already? I'm not necessarily against it if it just looked like total crap. At the end of the day, go with who you believe your best offensive lineman unit is, right? Because I say this all the time, and I'll continue to say it. The offensive line is not all about pure talent. It's not about just getting the most talented guys on the field. It's getting the guys on the field who have the best continuity, who play the best together as a unit. And the way that I revert back to this is back in 2021, Michael Onwenu was benched early to mid-season for Ted Karras. You know that Michael Onwenu is a much better guard than Ted Karras is, but Ted Karras had much better continuity with the other veterans on the O-line that significantly improved the overall play to New England's O-line. And I think that's what they have to look for here. They have to look for what the best continuity lineup is to give them, their best pass protection, but also to give them their best run blocking unit. So this is something that we're going to have to see what they do heading into training camp. If we start training camp and they're doing the exact same thing, then I think it's very clear they shifted paths with the offensive line, and they shifted from trying to develop Caden Wallace as a left tackle to now him just playing as their potential starting right tackle, and Michael Onwenu not playing as a right tackle, but playing as a right guard. And look, honestly, as frustrating as it is that the Patriots wouldn't have drafted a left tackle, I mean, if you're just trying to get players in their true positions that play the best, Michael Onwenu, while he can be a good right tackle, he's a much, much better guard. He is one, if not the best guard in the entire National Football League. So if you want to just put players in positions where they play the best and succeed, Michael Onwenu plays better as a guard than a tackle. Caden Wallace, we know, is going to play way better as a right tackle than he is trying to develop as a left tackle. So that might be their thought process too.
Yeah, and for me, if I'm going into this year, just as an offensive line guy, not an offensive line guy, but if I have to pick who I want the Patriots offensive line to be going into week 1, I'm leaving Michael Onwenu at right tackle. I'm putting Layden Robinson at right guard. I'm going David Andrews at center. I'm moving Sidy Sow back to left guard because that's where he played in college. And then I'm going to force Chuks Okorafor or Caden Wallace to battle it out at left tackle. Is that ideal? No. I said this on the podcast that I do, the Patriots Drive podcast, when the schedule came out. I think the Patriots are picking probably around the 10th pick, and you can find a starting caliber left tackle at that pick. The Jets, they found Olu Fashanu there. There's going to be guys, Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks out of Texas. There's going to be guys there next year. This team is probably not going to win 7 or 8 games there. I can maybe project 5 or 6 wins. I know we were just trolling TD. He was trolling us and we were saying that, but I can maybe see 5 or 6 wins, which in my opinion puts us around the 10th pick. That has to be our pick next year, in my opinion, in the first round. It needs to be the Patriots going left tackle round 1 and finding a cornerstone like left tackle piece, unless Caden Wallace figures it out at left tackle. But for me, if I'm starting week 1, I'm keeping Onwenu at tackle. I'm putting Layden Robinson at guard where he played in college, David Andrews at center, Sidy Sow, who played left guard in college there, and then I'm figuring out the left tackle position. And that scares the living crap out of me, saying, oh, we're just going to figure out the left tackle position because that's the most important one with a right-handed quarterback. But that's how I would roll it out there. And then if maybe Caden Wallace doesn't work out or Layden Robinson doesn't work out, then you can move Michael Onwenu into the guard position. But I have such a bad taste in my mouth that we've known for 2 years the Patriots' biggest need on the O-line is tackle, and we've taken like 5 guys within the top 150 at the interior offensive line position. And we did it again this year with Caden Wallace, who probably projects a little bit better as an interior offensive lineman more than a guard or more than a tackle. So for me, I think that we've kind of screwed up the drafting of the offensive line, even though I like the guys we have. And it's just like, hey, we have a bunch of really good guards that we're going to try to play at tackle like Michael Onwenu or like Caden Wallace. And it hasn't worked out so far.
Yeah, for me, honestly, the last thing I want is I don't want to get into the season and it be week 5 and we have 5 different offensive linemen or 5 different offensive line units in 5 different games, right? Yes. I want to have continuity. Yes, it might start off rough. It might start off slow. but run with the same unit and let these guys develop over time. And that might also be what Gerard Mayo, what this team is trying to do, is they're saying, we want to see a couple of different alignments, right? We want to see a couple of different units. We want to see what the best offensive line unit is actually going to look like before we solidify anything heading into the regular season. So that could always be a possibility for them too. That's why I said what we see in training camp, especially early on, is going to dictate what they view this offensive line as. So it's definitely scary, but they also have a lot of bodies. They have like 3 different offensive line coaches. I think that that's been an issue for them since Dante Scarnecchia left too, is the fact that they haven't really had a true like offensive line coach. They've had some duds here and there. They had like Matt Patricia working. They had Bill Belichick for most of the season last year working with the offensive line. Like, those guys are never going to be successful, especially these young guys, without true development from an actual coach. Now they have three offensive line coaches. So, you definitely have some faith there, but right now, lots of questions about what this unit is going to look like. Lots of bodies, lots of developmental possibilities, but no true like week one solidified offensive line.
Yeah, no, and it might be the most important thing. And that's also why some people have been asking, about Drake May. That's why I'm not necessarily, I don't think we need to start him week one. Even if he looks ready, I don't think it's a necessary thing. Figure out the offensive line, see how they're going to work in, games 1 through 4, and then, see if it continues to 5 through 6. That's the biggest thing for me, why I don't think Drake May needs to start week one for this team. Expectations are probably not the playoffs this year. Maybe for some Patriots fans it is. For me, I don't see it. I don't see playoffs. It would be a miraculous year, and it would be such an overachievement if they were to do something like it. Could they do something like the Texans did last year? Possibly they could. If everything went 100% right, yes. If Jalen Polk is like Tank Dell, if Drake May is somewhat like CJ Stroud, if the offensive line is just way better than what we think it is, yes, they can. Right now, optimistically, I'm saying, probably not. And so figure out the offensive line before you throw Drake May out to the Wolves. Give him a little bit more time to get used to the NFL, get ready to be the starting quarterback, come week 8, 9, maybe even 10, and then roll with it from there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Real quick, did you see that N'Keal Harry finally switched to tight end with the Minnesota Vikings?
Did, and he was like the number 1 ad on fantasy football apps for like a week straight because everyone was like hyping him up.
Bro, Patriots fans wanted N'Keal Harry to switch to tight end for the longest time. Also, we needed a tight end for the longest time. So, like, why they didn't at least try it, I don't know. But if this man pops off all of a sudden, like, I'm gonna be a little sad. I'm gonna be like, damn, why didn't we try this earlier? Because this man, he makes really good contested catches. He was just way too slow and sluggish to play wide receivers.
Yep.
But TD saying I can't see a win on the left side was funny. TD had to have been trolling, because if you look at the Patriots schedule, I'm sorry, but there's no way you're gonna tell me your ceiling is 3 wins. I think the floor is 3 wins. Like, I think the floor is 3 wins and the ceiling 7. Like, I think they could get to 7 wins, but I think that's probably like my ceiling for them, with the floor being 3 total wins. Also, week 1 against the Bengals, everybody's like saying the Patriots are going to get pounded and they're going to get blown out. I think that's actually a lot more winnable than people realize, especially with Joe Burrow starting off slow, the Bengals starting off slow. But not just that, Joe Burrow might not even be playing that game. Yeah. So that game is definitely more winnable than people think.
In my opinion, I mean, the Bengals one's going to be tough because it's on the road. But, the Seahawks one has got to be the one of the ones that's winnable. If you could start those first 3-4 games, because I think the Jets are going to be better, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers, unless he gets hurt again. But you start Bengals, Seahawks, Jets, Niners, you probably are hoping, you're crossing your fingers you win at least 2 of those games. You're probably saying, if I go 0-4 in these games, you're already screwed. But you need to find one win, and it could be the Bengals, could be the Seahawks. Heck, maybe it's the Jets or whatever, or the Niners. But of those first 4 games, you got to find at least 1 win, and you're hoping for 2. So it's hard, man. It's a tough schedule. It really is a hard schedule, and it doesn't help that we're not going to be very good, in my opinion. But we'll see. We just got to see we got to have the rookies improve. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah. Zachary's been asking, how are the two young wide receivers looking in camp? We broke down specific plays a little bit earlier if you want to kind of rewind and check out the wide receiver talk. But just real quick, Jalen Polk developing really, really well throughout each practice, especially minicamp. He had a total of 4 touchdowns throughout 2 days of Patriots mandatory minicamp. Really, really building that chemistry, specifically with Drake May, but is also looking good with Jacoby Brissett. So he's someone that I think will make, excuse me, an immediate impact. As for Javon Baker, he was looking good early on in OTAs. We didn't hear a single thing about him in minicamp. I think that that's because he's dealing with an injury. You know, they'll be off for the next month, but I think that they didn't want to potentially aggravate and make it anything worse, because he's another guy that could be a big piece to this team and to this offense this upcoming season. So he didn't really do much in minicamp, but OTAs, he did have some really good catches, some really good show outs, really a good outside ex-contested receiver for the Patriots, was making a lot of contested, impressive grabs, adjustments mid-air. So in OTAs, looking good. Minicamp, didn't see anything because he was limited.
Yeah, and the other one, Zach, if you care, Zachary, I should say, Kayshon Boutte was another one that was just, I mean, you know, he's not a rookie, but
yeah,
he's a second year guy that was a 7th round pick last year that had a phenomenal freshman season at LSU. He had a 200 plus yard game against Mississippi State. He dominated LSU his freshman year, then had a little bit of a down couple last 2 seasons due to some coaching changes and some off the field issues. But he had 4 touchdowns in 1 day for the Patriots. And so maybe he's the one that breaks out, but you know, we'll wait and see who that is. But I'm really excited how Jalen Polk is coming along, and I'm excited to see Javon Baker because I think he's going to be a stud. I agree with what Ty said down here. He was one of my guys in the draft. You know, I am a huge draft sicko, and I freaking loved Javon Baker. I think maybe the only guy I wanted more than him, I don't even know if I could say one. You know, like he was at the top of my list, especially in the 4th round. That was a freaking steal.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about Kayshon Boutte too is the fact that he entered his senior season having 1st round hype, but he just fell off so bad in his senior year that he ends up going as a late round pick to the Patriots. So again, he has that potential. We know he has that potential, but it's all been about health and it's been all about mindset, right? So if he can get himself determined and focused, the Patriots definitely have a potential receiver with Kayshon Boutte on their hands. And we even saw that at times in the preseason, at times last year too. It just wasn't consistent enough. I think, last thing I'll say about the wide receivers is that for Kayshon Boutte, for him to make this final roster, he's going to need to consistently show out. He's not going to be able to do this thing where he shows out one day and then he's silent the next, and then shows out one day and he's silent the next. It can't be inconsistent. The Patriots need consistency at the wide receiver position. It doesn't matter if Juju Smith-Schuster isn't getting in the end zone as much. It doesn't matter if he isn't looking maybe as spectacular, making all of these eye-popping catches, right? If Juju or KJ Osborne or Tyquan Thornton is just consistently making more plays than somebody like Kayshon Boutte, they're going to get the nod, because that's what New England just needs right now.
For sure. Well, let's move on to maybe the defensive side.
Yeah.
The biggest takeaway is probably coming from the secondary. Christian Gonzalez, they have been saying, has not skipped a beat, like an absolute stud. Yeah, so Ty, I guess we just said it at the same time. He has been playing. People have been saying that it looks like he hasn't skipped a beat. He was another guy for me that I thought last year they should have taken him at 14, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they traded down. They're never going to get him now. And somehow they're still able to get him at pick 17. So along with Matt Judon being back, that's a huge storyline. But Gonzalez was playing so good. Could have been defensive player or defensive rookie of the year last year if he continued it and stayed healthy. He's been incredible. And then you mentioned it earlier in the show, Alex Austin. He's probably been the 2nd best corner. He had a couple really good days for the Patriots, and another late round undrafted free agent guy the Patriots might be able to make something out of at the cornerback position.
Yeah. In terms of cornerbacks, Christian Gonzalez is your clear-cut number 1. There's no questions about that. The question has always been who's going to be your outside perimeter number 2 cornerback other than Gonzo. And we're talking about Alex Austin. We're talking about Marco Wilson. Right now, apparently, I mean, like, we're talking about Alex Austin for understandable reasons. I mean, day 1 of minicamp, he had a pass breakup. Day 2, he had another pass breakup. But Marco Wilson is also playing really good football. He had one pass breakup on day 2. And while Alex Austin definitely has the nod over Marco Wilson also is not skipping beats. Like, he is on the heels of Alex Austin for that outside number 2 cornerback spot. So that is definitely a battle to watch as we enter training camp. But in terms of Gonzo, like, Gonzo has a pass breakup on day 1. Didn't really do anything on day 2. He's been pretty silent, but that's not a bad thing, right? If you're a wide receiver and you're silent, that's not really a good thing. If you're an offensive lineman or you're a cornerback and you're silent, that's actually a really good thing. And Gonzo's just shutting guys down. He's not necessarily making plays, but he's just doing what he has to do. There was a point, I don't remember if this was OTAs or if this was day 1 of minicamp, though, where I think he was targeted like 4 times and allowed 5 receptions. I think that got blown up a little bit. Look, as long as he's not allowing big gains or big splash plays or letting up in the end zone, that's what matters most, right? And again, this is still early on in the process. He is still coming back from an injury, but the fact that he's been silent so far, I think has actually been a really, really good thing.
Yeah, him and Christian Barmore are going to be 2 staples of the defense for a long time to come. Another one I want to hit on, and you can talk about maybe one or maybe it's another guy. Keon White's had a huge role so far, major role for the defense. They've said they've actually moved him all along the defensive line, but he's been mostly playing out of a 2-point stance, and he was rushing in line sometime and caused pressure twice. That was on day 1 of the Patriots minicamp, or sorry, the final day of the Patriots minicamp. But Keon White's another guy we have high hopes for. He was a 2nd-round pick last year for the Patriots. He's a freak athlete. He's built like a truck. Him and Matt Judon could cause some freaking terror in backfields, obviously with Josh Uche also. So I've been pretty impressed with the things I've heard from Keon White, because I don't want to say I was disappointed in him last year, but I felt like he just didn't do a lot to contribute. He came along towards the back half of the year and had some really good plays, but just kind of like a very steady rookie season. And now hopefully he lives up to that 2nd-round hype.
Yeah. I mean, there's no specific plays that we can say from Keon White, but also with the defensive line, like, there's in these practices, there's nothing you can truly say in terms of plays, right? Because there's no contact, there's no pads. It's really about what would have happened, right? Or where is he playing? How is he playing? How fast is he getting off of the line? And I've heard a lot of really, really good things about Keon White also. He probably has been the biggest standout player amongst that defensive line. And New England really does need help at edge. And I think that that's in an undervalued place, right? Not necessarily in terms of bodies, because I think they have a decent amount of bodies, but more so in terms of pass rush. Outside of Matthew Judon, and Josh Uche, they don't really have anybody that is able to get to the quarterback. Outside of Matthew Judon, they don't have anybody that can really consistently get to the quarterback. My biggest thing with Keon White is going to be, can he actually make plays? Because when Keon White was drafted, we knew that he was going to be a wrecking ball. He was going to collapse a pocket. He was going to get a lot of pressure, but he wasn't somebody who was going to light up the stat sheet, right? Like, he wasn't going to make a crap ton of sacks or anything like that. Like, he wasn't going to put up 13, 15, 20 sacks a season. I wonder if the Patriots utilize him correctly, if he's somebody who can start making more plays. Because while New England, obviously the first priority is getting pressure on the quarterback, you also want your defensive line making plays. We know that DeMarcus Covington said that the way that he's going to run his defense this upcoming season is that they're going to be a lot more aggressive. Like, this is going to be more of a 2019 version of the New England Patriots defense rather than maybe a 2023 or a 2022 version of the team. So if they do want to get more aggressive, I think playing Keon White on the edge consistently and getting his mismatches would definitely make a lot of sense. But quick question, because I think this has been a question that I've seen amongst the Patriots community. I'm curious on your take. I've given mine. If Keon White does start showing out in practices and he's looking good and he's looking good in the preseason, does that make somebody like Matthew Judon expendable?
Yes, I think it does. I think if you feel comfortable with Keon White, there is enough edge players in the 2nd or 3rd round of NFL drafts or guys that you can sign in free agents. If you feel Keon White at his age and you're going to save a little bit of money, I think that maybe there's more important roles and younger guys on the roster that the Patriots might value signing more than Matt Judon. Jonathan Jones. I think that there's guys you're going to have to pay Gonzalez coming up in a couple years. So, I guess you could sign Matt Judon for a 2-year deal and get 2 more years out of him. I know he certainly wants to be here, but I think that the NFL is strictly a business thing. And as much as I love Matt Judon, if Keon White shows this year that he can replace him, I think that does make Matt Judon expendable. Does that mean I want him to be expendable? No, but you can make him expendable if you feel Keon White is in that role. So I think that those two are going to be great for this season. And maybe you just say, hey, we're going to let Uche walk next year, or we're not going to re-sign him or offer him a contract, and we're just going to roll with Keon White and Matt Judon. You can get away with that. But I think that depending on how Keon White's development is, I would say he's more similar to a Matt Judon than a Josh Uche, where he's probably a little more consistent in the run game, but can still get to the passer. So maybe you do cut ties with Matt Judon and just re-sign Josh Uche as the true edge rusher. But I love Judon. I want him here as long as he can be here if, the contract is right. I also don't want to overpay for a 30-plus-year-old edge rusher that maybe only has 1 or 2 years left.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to what the contract would look like for somebody like Judon. I feel like if you're not going to extend Judon, then I don't know if you even extend somebody maybe like a Jonathan Jones too, just because, Jonathan Jones, he's 30 years old. Matthew Judon's obviously 31. Both have dealt with a lot of injury problems too. Even Jonathan Jones more than I would say Matthew Judon. For me, I think it could make him expendable, but I think if the Patriots want to be competitive in any way, shape, or form, then I think they'll end up keeping Matthew Judon just because they have really bought into this philosophy of keeping around players and extending players and taking care of the players that build that Gerard Mayo philosophy of playing to the player to your left, playing for the player to your right, and just playing as a unit and having that good energy, that good environment in practice. And we know that Matthew Judon brings that. Matthew Judon, every single day of training camp that's open to the public, every single game day, he's out there playing catch with the fans. And that's something that we've not seen from any other Patriots player. And I think that definitely could go a long way. So I think it just depends on the contract that Judon's looking for. If he's looking to be paid as like a top 3, maybe even top 5 edge rusher, maybe they say no. But to me, the fact that he was actually present at minicamp and he wasn't holding in, he wasn't holding out, to me, that actually says that they might be closer to a contract extension or a re-advised contract for his final year than maybe we think. Because remember, let's remember, a year ago at this time, he was holding in.
Yeah. I also think another name other than Keon White, that he just re-signed for a 3-year deal. If Anthony Jennings continues to progress, he's going to be the one that probably makes Matt Judon a little bit more expendable. If you feel comfortable between Keon Wright and Anthony Jennings that you can get the production that Matt Judon will provide, then maybe you can let him go. So I agree with you, though. Judon wants to be here. He said only good things about the Patriots, this organization, wanting to be here. I am excited to see him play this year. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully they can work out a 1 or 2 year contract after this year, because he is one of the more veteran guys on this roster, and you're going to need that at some point. You're going to need that experience and leadership. And he's always, like you said, him and Kendrick Bourne are the 2 most vocal, funnest guys to watch when they're out on the field, because they just, the passion they play the game with is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. But let's move on here a little bit too. I kind of want to revert back to the cornerbacks just one more time. Isaiah Bolden, and I believe he's a UDFA, Azizi Hearn. I believe I'm saying that right. Azizi Hearn has been showing out in practice so far for the Patriots too. He had a pass breakup on day 1. He also had a pass breakup on day 2. I believe he plays more as an outside cornerback, if I remember correctly. I know the Patriots kind of have a lot of depth there, but I believe he plays more as an outside guy. He could be fighting for maybe that second spot outside of Christian Gonzalez too, right, with Marco Wilson and Alex Austin. But the Patriots also will need a third cornerback too. They're also going to need depth there, so he's someone who might be able to take over. Isaiah Bolden is somebody who has been playing a little bit more in the slot and not so much outside, so that's something to definitely keep an eye on. As Jonathan Jones, it sounds like, from what's been reported, it sounds like they actually want to kick Jonathan Jones back into playing in the slot and not playing outside. I don't know about you. I'm 100% for that. I've actually said that I want to see the Patriots get back to playing players in the positions that they are going to succeed in, and not asking them to play outside of their position that they might be able to play well at. Start playing players where they're going to play their best. And Jonathan Jones is the best slot cornerback maybe top 3 slot cornerback at worst. So I think getting him back there will definitely bode very, very well for the Patriots. But any last thoughts on the cornerbacks?
No, I would like Marcus Jones in there. If they have a true outside corner with a little more length, like Christian Gonzalez, him, and Marcus Jones in the slot would be really freaking good. I love like Cam Hart in the draft. Obviously, we didn't get him. Marcellus Dial is a guy that I'm interested to see how he continues to do, but people are like, oh, he's probably going to be a free safety in the NFL, so maybe he's not a true outside guy. He could be an option. Sean Wade's still on the roster too, right? I'm not tripping.
Yeah.
He's a guy that had a ton of hype coming out of Ohio State for the Ravens and then never really got it. So maybe him or Isaiah Bolton are one of those guys. Yeah, can figure it out.
I think he's more of a slot or a safety, not so much an outside corner. I think that's where he plays better.
He has the length to do it, and he did it in college, but he has not been good in the NFL so far. So they got to find a spot for him. But yeah, that would be all I have to say about the corners.
So let's continue to talk about the secondary here. Let's talk about the safeties. I don't think there's really too much to get into. I think Kyle Duggar, since signing that contract extension, has looked really good. Like, he has 3 or 4 interceptions throughout spring practices in total. Had another one on day 1. He jumped a stick route on a Bailey Zappi throw that they said in a live game would have been a pick 6. I think that, again, just like Jonathan Jones, just like Michael Onwenu, you need to get Kyle Duggar back to playing where he plays the best, because if you can get a 2022 version of Kyle Duggar, I think that it's going to take this idea of a more aggressive Patriots defense to the next level, where he was getting into the end zone and getting defensive touchdowns on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, I feel so comfortable about our safety room. Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar, Marte Mapu. I feel so freaking comfortable with those guys. Those are 3 dudes that can all do a bunch of things really well. You're going to be able to disguise coverages with them. They're versatile in the run and the pass game. You can blitz some of them. They have good hands. Kyle Duggar's just getting better. Like, he was so raw. That's why he was at a Division II school and a little bit underlooked. He's still, I just think he's getting better and better every year and more comfortable in the NFL. I expect him to just continue to grow and be probably a top 5, elite NFL safety. He could be first team all NFL, in my opinion, maybe second team all NFL or all defense, whatever it is. But I think that he's going to be freaking really good for the Patriots for a long time. I'm glad they worked out that extension for him. I know that they transition tagged him, but I'm glad they've actually got something done. He's going to be staple. Jabril Peppers is awesome. Marte Mapu, I'm interested to see, because I really do believe if Bill Belichick was still the coach, Marte Mapu probably takes over for Kyle Duggar, and Kyle Duggar's gone because Bill Belichick doesn't want to pay for him and pay that contract. So.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, we're going to be wrapping up the show here in a little bit. Couple more positions to hit on before we bounce out of here. Again, episode 1 of Patriots Roundtable will be here every single Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys do subscribe to the AFC East Roundtable and turn on your post notifications. And make sure you guys put on your little calendars every single Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, the Patriots Roundtable. But we have about 106 of you watching, guys. So please make sure you hit that like button. It massively helps push this video and push this channel out into the YouTube algorithm. So it would mean the absolute world to us. But let's get into special teams. This is going to be the last thing that we're going to talk about here, because I think we do have to talk about Chad Ryland. Chad Ryland was super erratic last year, obviously, as a rookie. I think if you had Nick Folk, honestly, you had a consistent kicker, you could probably name like 3 or 4 games that the Patriots end up winning if they just have a guy that they could consistently rely on. And Chad Ryland just was not that, right? You head into the offseason, and the Patriots, they give him a little bit of competition. They pick up Joey Sly, the veteran kicker. I want to say he played for the Commanders last year. Patriots had a little bit of experience with Joey Sly, right? They played the Commanders last year. But Chad Ryland on day 1 of minicamp, he went 2 for 4 on his kicks to end practice with makes from 32 and a miss from 37 and 47, while Joey Sly went for a perfect 4 out of 4. Ryland did later make one from 52. I think so far with Chad Ryland, we're seeing the exact same thing that we saw last year, right? A guy that is just going to be so damn inconsistent. He might be able to make a 55-yarder, a 60-yarder, but he's going to be at like the 37-yard line or kicking a chip shot 40-yard field goal, and he's going to miss it. So at the end of the day, do you want a kicker who yeah, he's going to give you more potential with a bigger leg, or would you rather go with somebody like Joey Sly, who maybe is going to be more consistent? Yeah, once you reach the 50, you might not want to, utilize him because he doesn't have the leg for it, but he's going to be consistent when inside like the 45.
It's so freaking hard because the Patriots traded up for Chad Ryland last year. And
Yeah, dude.
I mean, in the 4th round too. Like, he has the leg. He can consistently boom it, but shit, I'd rather have someone that's consistently going to make it within the 40 than a guy that maybe is going to make one outside of the 50, but has no accuracy inside the 40. And like you said, is going to, I mean, what he was I'm sorry, I freaking read it. And now I forgot what it was. He was 16 for 25 on field goals last year. Was Chad
Yeah.
Ryland. Like, that is horrible. And I mean, you can say what you want. Yeah, if the Patriots hit a couple more field goals, they win a couple more games, they probably don't have a chance at drafting Drake May. It all works out in the end. But yeah, I mean, that if you're going from a team that's now not expected to be super bad and now you're pushing for the playoffs, the difference between 7 and 9 wins is huge in the playoffs to get a wild card spot. And you can't afford that. So I almost want to lean Joey Sly. I don't know if Chad Ryland has any value. Like, you could probably P squad him, but gosh, I don't care how young the kicker is. Just get Nick Folk was freaking old as crap. Adam Vinatieri was old when he was here, or when he was still good. Like, you can find guys that can still kick field goals at an old age. Just find a guy that's good and consistent at giving us 3 points, because it sucks anytime you can't, like, you want to score 7 every time you're on the field. At least get 3, but when you miss field goals and come out with 0, it's heartbreaking for the defense too. Now you have to trot back out there and you're like, oh, that we didn't even get any points for that. So I would almost rather just have Joey Sly.
Yeah, I'm really not sure why the Patriots moved on from Nick Folk. I understand he was getting older, but I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't fix it till you gotta fix it, right? Because the kicker carousel in the NFL is a real thing, right? So many teams want a good, consistent kicker, and Nick Folk was one, if not the best kicker in the entire National Football League last year for the Titans when the Patriots got rid of him. Stupid move. And I mean, I guess in theory it worked out because they got Drake May, but again, they were not purposely losing games, right? They were not trying to lose these games to tank and get Drake May. They just were naturally that bad. And now that you got the quarterback, you want to be good. You want consistency from every player. You want to win games, and the kicker is going to be a massive part on that. Day 2, Chad Riley went 3 for 4 in team drills. Joey Sly went again a perfect 4 for 4. So again, 2 days of mandatory minicamp. We have not seen a miss so far from Joey Sly, as we're consistently seeing Chad Ryland only make about half of his field goals. And so that's going to be a real battle to watch.
It is. And I really think that Joey Sly's winning it right now. And if it continues to be, very inconsistent for Chad Ryland, I would even mind losing him on P squad, even though we traded up for him. It sucks to say, but gosh, you just can't have a guy that cannot consistently make 90% of field goals within the 40. Like, he was 16 for 25 last year is horrid. That is so bad. And he's continuing. I mean, 50% one day, 75% another day through 2 days of mini camp. You got to roll with Joey Sly right now if Ryland can't figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. But guys, that is going to recap the 2 days of New England Patriots mandatory minicamp and just some of our overall thoughts about where the team currently is. Make sure you guys subscribe here to the AFC East Roundtable for all of your news. I mean, we got a lot of shows. We got a lot of shows on the AFC East Roundtable. Obviously, you can catch the regular crew every single Wednesday around 7:30, 8 p.m. But you also got the Patriots Roundtable every single Friday here with me and Jace at 8 p.m. Eastern. You got the Jets Roundtable, the Dolphins Roundtable, the Bills Roundtable. So go ahead and check all of that out here on the AFC East Roundtable. Make sure you guys also go ahead and check out the merch. They just dropped a couple of new merchandise for each team, including the Patriots. So Pats fans, the Roundtable Sports, they finally got Patriots merch. And I promise I'm pushing out more. I got ideas. I'm making sure that we are noticed amongst the Roundtable and here at the AFC Roundtable. So more merchandise is to come out, but check that in the link in the description box below. On your way out, also leave a big like on the video. Really helps us out. But of course, most importantly, subscribe to me and Jace's individual channels. Those are linked in the description boxes below. You can subscribe to me for all New England Patriots related content here on YouTube at Patriots Global and Jace over at Patriots Drive. Again, that is linked in the description box below. We appreciate you guys so much for watching. Jason, any last words before we log off?
No, appreciate it. Show 1 was awesome. I mean, it's fun to be a part of Roundtable. I've watched you guys for a long time. Watched, you Oh, TD's in here now, so now I can bag on him. I've watched TD be delusional and just salty. We've dominated them for the last 20 years. So I'm glad that I'm a part of here, have a little bit of say for the Patriots. And I'm just excited, man. This is an awesome thing to be a part of. You guys have a great thing going here, and just hoping to bring a little bit of fun, and insightful and informational Patriots talk to the roundtable and represent them a little better than what they have been. So super excited for this. Hopefully you guys, like Colby said, subscribe to this. Make sure you guys plan on it or every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Are we going to make every Friday? Most likely not, but we're going to freaking get on here as much as we can because this is our hobby. We love talking Patriots football, and we love talking with you guys about it. So super excited to continue to build this show.
Yeah, and it looks like TD's roasting you in the comments already. Classic TD.
It's okay, man.
That's your beautiful welcome to Roundtable Sports. TD roasting you, even though the Dolphins have the longest playoff drought in the entire National Football
No,
League.
they made it last year, and then they just had to play
in terms of wins.
20. Oh yeah, then they just had to play
wins,
negative 20-degree weather and lose to the Chiefs. So.
But guys, we will be back next week, next Friday. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but me and Jace will figure it out to bring you your best Patriots-related content. This is your one-stop shop for everything involving the New England Patriots. But as always, we appreciate you guys so much for watching. We will catch you next week. And most importantly, don't forget, go Pats, baby!